Shame and fear are powerful forces that keep us stuck in the very places that hurt us. They trap us quietly, slowly, and often without us even realizing how much of ourselves we have lost in the process. Because fear whispers that leaving will make everything worse. And shame tells us that maybe we deserve the pain, maybe we should have tried harder, maybe we are the problem. These voices are heavy. They settle into our minds like a fog, making it difficult to see the truth. And the truth is that staying in a painful environment does not make you loyal. It makes you exhausted, disconnected, and emotionally fragile. Fear convinces us that change is dangerous, so we cling to the familiar even when the familiar is hurting us. We choose the known pain over the unknown future. We convince ourselves that maybe things will magically get better if we remain patient. But fear's favorite lie is that survival is the same as happiness, and it is not. Shame, on the other hand, keeps us quiet. It tells us not to speak up, not to set boundaries, not to walk away, because if we do, people might judge us or misunderstand us. Shame makes us hide our true feelings and pretend everything is under control, even when our heart is breaking inside. Shame makes us believe that the hurt we experience is a reflection of our worth, that we were not enough, not strong enough, not lovable enough, and not deserving of better. But none of this is true. Shame is a story we learn from someone else's behavior, not a truth we were born with, yet we hold on to it as if it defines us. Fear and shame work together like silent chains, binding us to situations that drain our spirit. We stay in broken relationships, toxic environments, or harmful patterns because fear paints every door with uncertainty, and shame convinces us that we are not capable of walking through it. We tolerate disrespect because fear says no one else will care, and shame says we do not deserve more. We accept emotional neglect because fear says being alone will be worse, and shame says our needs are too much. These lies are so deeply woven into our minds that we forget we have choices. We forget that healing requires leaving the places where our self-worth has been questioned again and again. The truth is, fear is not protecting us, it is limiting us, and shame is not guiding us, it is silencing us. The moment we recognize this, something shifts within us. A small spark of courage begins to rise, even if it feels fragile at first. A courage does not appear loudly, it often shows up in quiet moments, in the small decisions where we say no to something hurtful, when we choose rest instead of pleasing others, when we choose our peace instead of continuing the cycle of pain, when we begin to understand that shame is not our identity and fear is not our destiny, we start to loosen the grip of the environment that wounded us. We begin to see possibilities where before we saw only barriers. We begin to feel the faint but powerful truth that we deserve a space where our heart can breathe freely. Healing requires walking away from the places that diminish us, but we cannot walk away until we first confront the fear and shame that keep us still. It takes honesty to admit we stayed too long. It takes kindness to forgive ourselves for not leaving earlier. And it takes courage to choose a new life even when the old one feels familiar. The moment you begin to challenge fear's lies and silence shame's voice, you open a new chapter for yourself, a chapter where you are no longer controlled by the environment that hurt you, but guided by the belief that you are worthy of safety, compassion, and peace. This is how you become unstuck. This is how healing begins, when the chains of fear and shame finally break and you choose yourself. Setting boundaries is not cruel. It is necessary for growth. It is necessary for healing. And it is necessary for becoming the version of yourself you were always meant to be. When you begin to set them, you start to feel something powerful inside you, a sense of self returning, a sense of worth rising, a sense of emotional freedom unfolding. You realize that you are allowed to choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and respect over fear. Boundaries teach people how to treat you, and more importantly, they teach you how to treat yourself. They remind you that you do not have to stay where you are constantly questioned, doubted, belittled, or emotionally overwhelmed. You can love people and still say no. You can care deeply and still walk away. You can hold a soft heart and still protect it fiercely. Healing requires boundaries because they become the line between what hurt you and what will heal you. They create the distance needed for clarity. They give you space to breathe and rebuild, and they open the door to environments that nurture your growth instead of stifling it. When you finally choose to set boundaries, you are choosing to honor your life, your heart, and your healing, and that choice becomes the foundation of the peace you have always deserved. A new environment gives your heart room to breathe because healing rarely happens in the same spaces where you learn to silence yourself, where your feelings were dismissed, or where your worth was questioned again and again. And this truth is something many of us resist because stepping into a new environment feels like stepping into uncertainty. We are creatures of habit. We grow attached to familiarity even when it hurts. We convince ourselves that staying is easier than searching for something better. But the reality is that healing needs space. It needs quiet. It needs a different kind of air. And it needs a place where your nervous system is not constantly in survival mode. A new environment does not only mean a new physical location, it can mean a new mindset, a new circle of people, a new way of responding to life, a new emotional landscape, or a new personal boundary that changes the energy around you. When you remove yourself from a space that drains you, something inside you begins to shift, your body loosens, your breath deepens, your thoughts become clearer, and your heart starts to soften in ways you did not know were possible. You start to realize how much noise you had been living in, how much pressure you were carrying, how much emotional clutter you had accepted as normal, and how long you stayed in places that never truly saw you. A new environment introduces you to different conversations, different energies, different levels of peace, and different versions of yourself, versions you could not access before because you were constantly being pulled into cycles of hurt and self-doubt. Sometimes all it takes is a small change, a moment of silence, a new routine, a single boundary, or the decision to distance yourself from those who drain your life. And suddenly you begin to experience a calmness that feels unfamiliar but deeply comforting. In a healthier environment, your heart does not have to defend itself every second. Your mind does not have to anticipate the next hurt, and your spirit does not have to shrink to survive. You are allowed to simply exist, to breathe, to feel, and to grow. Healing thrives in stillness, in understanding, in compassion, in respect, and in emotional safety. And when you enter a space that offers even a small fraction of these things, your entire inner world begins to open. A new environment also teaches you the power of distance, because distance gives clarity. It helps you see who was truly supporting you and who was benefiting from your silence, who valued you and who only used you, what was growing you and what was slowly damaging you. When you step away from chaos, you begin to understand that peace is not boring. It is essential. You realize that stability is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And you feel in your bones that you were never meant to live in spaces that kept you tense, anxious, or unseen. Many people fear moving into new environments because they believe they must have everything figured out before they take the leap. But healing does not require perfection. It only requires the willingness to choose yourself, even when the path is unclear. A new environment becomes a mirror showing you how capable you are, how strong you have been, and how deserving you are of gentle spaces where your emotions are honored instead of dismissed. You begin to see that your worth was never tied to the place you left behind. It was simply overshadowed by pain and confusion. And now, in a healthier space, it finally has room to stand tall. Healing in a new environment is not about running away. It is about running toward yourself. It is about reclaiming your breath, your identity, your self-respect, and your peace. It is the moment you realize that the world is bigger than the hurt you experienced, and that your life can expand beautifully when you give it the space to do so. A new environment gives you the grounding you need to rebuild, the quiet you need to reflect, the warmth you need to feel safe, and the hope you need to begin again. And when your heart finally breathes freely, you understand why staying in the place that hurt you was never going to heal you. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is courage in its rawest and most human form, because allowing yourself to be seen, especially in your moments of pain, uncertainty, or fear, requires a kind of bravery that pretending to be strong will never give you. Many of us are taught to hide our emotions, to keep our guard up, to swallow our feelings, and to act like everything is fine even when our heart is breaking. We are told that vulnerability makes us fragile, that showing emotion makes us dramatic, or that asking for help makes us dependent. But none of these beliefs are true. Vulnerability is the moment you say, this is who I am, this is what I feel, this is what hurts me, and standing in that truth is one of the most powerful things a human being can do. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you open the door to genuine connection, because no relationship, no friendship, no bond can grow in a space where one or both people are hiding behind emotional armor. Armor may protect you, but it also isolates you. It keeps you safe from hurt, but it also keeps you safe from love. And there is no healing possible in isolation. Vulnerability is the act of sitting with your emotions without judging them. It is the willingness to say you are tired, scared, confused, or hurting without feeling ashamed of your humanity. It is the choice to express rather than suppress, to feel rather than freeze, to speak rather than disappear inside your silence. Vulnerability is not about oversharing or exposing every part of yourself to everyone. It is about being honest with yourself first. It is about allowing the truth inside you to exist without apology. Healing requires vulnerability because you cannot heal from what you refuse to feel. You cannot move forward if you are pretending you are not affected, and you cannot grow emotionally if you are hiding behind a mask. The moment you let your guard down even a little, you begin to reconnect with your own heart. You begin to understand your triggers, your fears, your dreams, and your needs in a way that armor never allowed. Many of us fear being vulnerable because we have been hurt before. We have opened up only to be dismissed, judged, or betrayed. So we learn to shut down, to stay silent, to hold everything inside until it becomes a quiet H that follows us everywhere. But being hurt in the past does not mean you should never open up again. It simply means you learn something about who deserves your vulnerability. Vulnerability is sacred, and it should be offered to people who have earned your trust, people who hold your feelings with care, people who listen without minimizing your pain, people who see your softness as strength rather than weakness. When you share your truth with the right people, healing happens in ways that are deep and transformative. You no longer feel alone inside your emotions. You no longer feel like you have to carry everything by yourself, and you begin to experience the relief that comes from being understood. Vulnerability also helps you connect with yourself, because sometimes the person you need to speak your truth to is not someone else. It is you. It is the version of yourself that has been silenced, ignored, or pushed aside for far too long. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable with your own heart, you create space for forgiveness, compassion, and emotional release. You give yourself permission to acknowledge your mistakes without defining yourself by them. You allow yourself to grieve what you lost, to admit what you desire, and to embrace the parts of you that are still learning. Vulnerability is self-acceptance. It is the moment you stop fighting who you are and start embracing every part of your story with gentleness. Healing asks you to be vulnerable because vulnerability opens the door to clarity, connection, understanding, and transformation. It teaches you that strength is not about being unbroken. It is about being honest, present, open, and real. When you stand in your vulnerability, you reclaim your power not by hiding your wounds, but by honoring them, not by pretending you are invincible, but by showing that you are human. And in that humanity lies your greatest strength. Forgiveness is part of healing, but returning to the place that hurt you is not required, because forgiveness is something you do for the freedom of your own heart, not for the comfort of the person or environment that caused the pain. And understanding this difference is one of the most powerful steps in emotional growth. Many of us confuse forgiveness with reconciliation. We believe that once we forgive, we must go back, reconnect, re-engage, or rebuild what was broken. But this belief keeps us trapped in cycles of hurt, hoping that the same people or situations that wounded us will somehow become the source of our healing. Forgiveness is never about pretending the pain did not happen. It is not about minimizing what you went through, and it is not about erasing the memory of how deeply you were affected. Forgiveness simply means you are choosing not to allow the pain to control the rest of your life. You are choosing peace over bitterness, release over resentment, and freedom over emotional captivity. Returning, on the other hand, is a completely different decision, one that should be based on trust, safety, growth, and genuine change, not on guilt, obligation, or pressure. Sometimes the people who hurt you are still the same. Their behavior has not changed. Their words are still sharp. Their patterns are still harmful, and their presence still creates emotional chaos inside you. And going back to that kind of environment will only reopen wounds that have barely begun to heal. Forgiveness does not require you to put yourself back into a space that threatens your mental or emotional well-being. It does not demand that you rebuild a relationship with someone who refuses to take responsibility for the hurt they cause. And it does not ask you to sacrifice your peace just to prove you are a good person. You can forgive someone deeply and still choose distance. You can wish them healing and still protect your boundaries. You can release the resentment and still walk away without looking back. That is not cruelty, it is clarity, it is self-respect, and it is emotional maturity. Forgiveness is an internal process, a quiet unfolding that happens within your own heart. It is the moment you decide to stop carrying the weight of what someone else did. It is the moment you choose to loosen the grip of anger that has been sitting inside your chest for too long. It is the moment you understand that healing does not require revenge or closure from the other person. Healing begins when you reclaim your power by refusing to let the past define your present. Returning, however, is an external action, one that should only happen when safety is clear, when trust can be rebuilt, and when genuine accountability exists. And even then, you have every right to say no if it still does not feel right for your spirit. Forgiveness can happen without conversation, without reconciliation, and without the other person ever apologizing, because forgiveness is about your heart, not their behavior. Forgiving someone who hurt you is an act of strength because it means you are choosing growth over bitterness and choosing to become better instead of remaining broken. But choosing not to return is also an act of strength because it means you understand your worth, you recognize your limits, and you refuse to expose yourself to a wound that has already taken so much from you. Many people will try to convince you that forgiveness must come with reunion, but that is a misunderstanding understanding healing is personal, unique, and sacred, and no one has the authority to dictate how close or far someone should be from your life after they have caused you pain. You are allowed to forgive quietly, to let go gracefully, and to move forward without reopening the door behind you. You are allowed to start over without the same people who contributed to your hurt, and you are allowed to feel at peace with your decision. Forgiveness frees your heart, but walking away protects it. And sometimes the greatest act of self-love is choosing not to return to the place that wounded you, even after forgiveness has softened the memory of the pain. A decision to become the version of yourself that pain kept hidden. Your healing lives inside you, and sometimes the only thing standing in its way is the fear you have carried for far too long. When you finally choose to step toward the person you were always meant to be, you begin to realize that pain was never your enemy. It was a messenger waiting for you to listen. It was a signal showing where you were hurting, where you were shrinking, where you were pretending to be strong while secretly feeling broken. And when you stop running from that truth, you discover that the hidden version of you is not weak but powerful, not fragile but wise, not lost but waiting for permission to rise. Healing begins the moment you allow yourself to acknowledge the parts of you that feel unworthy, the parts of you that you silenced because you believed they were too broken to be seen. But those very parts hold the key to your transformation. They carry stories that shaped you, wounds that taught you, and resilience that stayed alive inside you, even in the darkest nights. Choosing to become that hidden version of yourself is not about erasing the past, but about reclaiming the pieces of your soul that pain tried to hide. Every fear you face softly unveils another layer of your strength. Every truth speak free speaks you from the chains you once believed were permanent. And every small step forward proves that healing was never somewhere outside waiting to be found. It was breathing quietly inside you, hoping you would turn inward and finally listen. When you understand that nothing stands in the way of your healing except the walls you built to survive, you realize those walls were never meant to keep you imprisoned forever. They were temporary shelters created by a younger version of you who did the best they could. Today, you are stronger, wiser, braver, and more capable than you have ever been. And now those walls are ready to come down one gentle moment at a time. You begin to see that the hidden version of you has always been the truest one, the one who believed in possibilities, the one who without fear, the one who carried dreams bigger than Trustin's lights is even when life felt unfair, and the one trust and confers. Returning to that self is not a step backward, but a homecoming, a reunion with the person you were before pain taught you to doubt your worth. As this truth settles into your awareness, you start treating yourself differently. You speak with more kindness. You listen with more presence. You move with more intention, and slowly the healing that once felt impossible becomes your daily reality. The fears that once blocked your path begin to fade. The wounds that once defined you soften, and you recognize that the power to transform your life was never something you had to earn. It was something you were born with. Healing becomes a choice you make again and again, not because the journey is easy, but because you deserve the freedom waiting on the other side of courage. The decision to become the version of yourself that pain kept hidden is the decision to finally live, to breathe without pretending, to speak without shrinking, to dream without apologizing, and to rise without asking for permission. Your healing lives inside you and always has, and when you choose to open the door to it, nothing in this world can stop the person you are becoming, not your past, not your fear, not your doubt, because you are finally choosing yourself, and that choice is the beginning of everything.